Can you believe this? Not even 5:30 am in the morning, and then people are queuing up like this here to worship the goddess that is couple of meters away from there. It's crazy what religion and faith does to people. So wherever you are, hello and welcome to the mountains of Nepal. This adventure series video is all about 2 full days spent at mountains, exploring and clicking the photos at very unusual hours. The entire happening of this video was filmed at Manakamana temple premises of Gorkha district that is located about 140 kilometers west from the capital city of Kathmandu. The price from the capital city are accordingly. While majority of the travelers prefer the tourist bus from Kathmandu to Pokhara and getting off at Mugling, we hired a car for this trip. We left the capital at about 7 in the morning and it was a beautiful cloudy day with moderate weather. After 4 hours of mountain drive at Prithvi Highway among the Terrace and the Trishuli River, we reached the bus station of the cable car at around 11 am. and headed off to secure the ticket at the counter. It was the day of Friday, so there was a pretty long queue and we had to wait almost 45 minutes until it was our turn to board the gondola. So I spent that time photographing the fountains and decorations that were there at the garden area. The last time I was here was way back a decade long ago, so the nostalgia that hit me was surreal. Then after what felt like an eternity, it was finally our turn for the flight. But at first, the safety protocols to be followed for two-way travel is about Rs 675 per person as of November 2021, including all the tax and round-up. So after an hour-long wait, we finally got our gondola and it was time to set up for it. The total elevation of the flight is from 258 meter altitude at the base station KURINTAR to 1300 meter altitude at the Manakamana temple. That takes around 8 minutes. The entire flight was a combination of clouds and the sun. The Manakamana cable car was built in the year of 1998 with investment of around 7.5 million US, and ever since it has become a favorite tourist destination for trek and pilgrimage lovers. Without visiting anywhere else, we headed straight uphill to our hotel for the meal. We were initially offered the room at the frontal side facing towards the temple lane, but upon checking the back view facing room, there was simply no turning back, with a view that we all were delighted to look. After some healthy arguments, we finally booked the room for a night, and without any further delay, it was the time for the meal.
I'm not thinking about the way you keep my world from spinning. I'm just thinking about your eyes. Just don't know if I've been faking or pretending, but I know I never felt so damn alive. I don't know if I believe the information.
After refilling ourselves, we headed down to the temple to explore and offer our prayers. The legendary pagoda-style temple of Manakamana dates back to the 17th century, the time of Ram Saha, the king of Gorkha. Its history has been largely associated with the great king Prithvi Saha, who initiated the trust of worshipping the goddess and feeding the peasants daily way back the memory lane to 1764 AD. This temple is the holy site of goddess Bhagwati Devi, an incarnation of Lakshmi with Garud as protector. In its native language, Mana refers to a heart and Kamana refers to a wish, and hence it is believed that Bhagwati grants wishes of its devotees.
Telling you to make you believe that the right guy ain't right here, right now, right here. I'm not thinking about how long it's gonna take now. I'm just thinking about our lives. You and me just laying blankets on the beach, and then at night I'll sing your favorite lullaby. I'm so glad I didn't give up easy, chasing after you. Hello, where you at, where you been? Tell me everything about you. Go slow, so I can write it down and become the perfect man for you. What you like, what you don't, you should never be flying solo. Hop into the cockpit, I can be a rocket. Take flight. So what if you been sitting there and thinking all this time? What's your mind?
Of all the days in the week, this holy site sees the highest number of devotees on Tuesday and Friday, where people opt to stay there overnight on weekend, which is what we did on this trip. It was the day of Friday, so the number of devotees present there spoke for itself. And at this time, I was pretty isolated from the team, so it was a time of self-exploration, and I headed down to the station. The local market was so crowded with visitors, dazzled by handicrafts, toys, photo frames, gift box, and obviously the most delicious oranges of the area. And then I think I photographed most probably the cutest girl I have ever seen.
What's your mindset?
It wasn't a quiet day by any means. There were a lot of people and a lot of activities happening up top there at the mountain, but I was enjoying my own company more than anything else, photographing some of the most captivating moments and a beautiful bond of a father and her daughter who were busy showcasing and selling the clay pots to the visitor without knowing I was capturing the moment from a distance.
Right now, I'm right here.
And then when the afternoon warmth started to decline, the atmosphere got cold and even more cloudy. So I thought to engage myself at the busiest area of the temple to photograph devotees and their rituals. It was a day of Friday, so a lot of devotees were staying overnight there just like us, and there was a lot of interesting activities happening around to photograph, some of which I am sharing here right now. Behind the bars of the temple, I saw a very delicate moment of a kid with yellow toque trying to catch a pigeon, and a senior worker trying to keep the premises clean and organized. The cold at the mountains, you just feel like being at the comfort of the afternoon sun's melody. The whole day was a mix of gloominess and clouds, but at the very last few minutes, the reddish-orange sun poked out from the clouds, and the photo that I was able to secure from a local hotel's veranda is easily one of the best landscape photos I have ever photographed. It was around 5:30 p.m. when we got to witness that magnificent sunset, and very shortly after that, stunning orange magic ducks crippled in. But also, it was time for the major evening event of the day, Aarati Time. That is what a lot of devotees have been waiting for since the late afternoon. The positivity, the chiming sound of the bell, and the entire atmosphere that turned into a spiritual high was absolutely second to the none. Even an atheist person could feel something empowering and connected during the Aarati procession. On top of everything, the tune of the serpent-like trumpet and the instrumental copper kettle drum known as the Maha was the most perfect vibing to end that night with faith in our hearts. We were inspired, and we were equally blessed by something so divine that evening. After hours of staring at the light of the window panel and planning for the morning shoot, well, it's time to get up and get things done. morning everybody from mountains of Gorkha. It is just after 4 a.m. in the morning, and the reason to wake up this early in the morning is because I wanted to take a star photo. My brain is a little bit fuzzy at this hour, and if you can see outside, it is really cloudy, it is super hazy. I don't think we are going to get that perfect star trails, but we are going to try and let's see what happens anyway. So let's get going. Shooting star trails or just stars in general has always been my photographic favorite. When it's just so early, you got nobody else but just self and the stars. It wasn't a clear morning at all, but still, I tried to make best use of available light and composition. But where exactly am I going with this composition? Yeah, outside the hotel's window, just like the video caption says it. So okay, this is where we slept last night, and sometimes the very best star trails location is just right in front of your hotel's room. This is the hotel's balcony top with no bars at all. Got my setup here, and as you can see, there is little to very little space here. I'm standing right at the edge of this top, and there is very minimal room for error. If I make a little mistake, then everything is gone. So there are some clouds, not some, there is literally the whole dense blanket of clouds right out of there. So this is the top right here, and everything is just covered with clouds. If you can see the wind shaking those leaves at this time. I use the manual focus at 30 seconds exposure time with the aperture of 5 at ISO 800 in landscape mode, and this is the photo I was able to capture with some basic light correction. Trees, stars and mountains, happy? Yeah, say the least, but that wasn't the exact composition I imagined. I needed an even more top view approach, so I headed up top at the terrace to study the location for a perfect composition. It was an early morning, but the Hammock Town was waking up slowly. There were dogs and people already that were starting the day. I tried many different spots to get the framing I liked, and at that time the wind was howling like crazy. Since people were already up, there was a lot of light pollution at the front side of the hotel's terrace, so I considered switching backyard with very less light and a mountain that I really liked in my composition. One great thing we could do with the help of technology was to navigate position of star and constellation via GPS with the app named Stellarium Mobile. So after aligning the setup at a correct position, I turned on the long exposure feature called light painting. It was a really dark atmosphere with very little light around, so we waited quite a few minutes for the photo to develop and process. After nearly losing the mobile holder screw while trying to set the gear, and after 8 minutes of long exposure on a fixed tripod, we were totally blown away by the image we were able to secure. The trail of a shooting star, or a falling meteor to be exact, at the upper right side of the image was worth the wait of 8 minutes. It was still early in the morning at 5:24 am, so I played around the app a little bit more to explore any other interesting happening, but it didn't live up to my expectations, so I took that time to just live in the moment and enjoy the cold. So okay, if you think shooting star trails early in the morning is fun, then you haven't seen the negative consequences. Yes, legit really cold right now. Super cloudy, super hazy, and super cold. And then there is the wind howling right in my ears. And then my hands are really shaking right now. And you can see nothing far away because the cloud has blanketed the environment right now. And then there are people okay, there are people already in the queue to worship the temple of Manakamana Devi. Let's see how big is that queue. Oh my god. Can you believe this? Not even 5:30 am in the morning, and then people are queuing up like this here to worship the goddess that is couple of meters away from there. It's crazy what religion and faith does to people. Mornings like these have always been so special at mountains, and well, that foggy morning was no exception, with some spine-tingling landscapes and views. It was an early blue hour at dawn, but the activities that were happening at the temple premises was hinting for yet another busy day. There was a ritual to light fire lamps to offer the prayers to the goddess. More of that in a minute, but for now, we got to have our breakfast. We did not consider having a heavy platter of morning meal, but instead chose to have something light and healthy. It was just a local eatery where we loved the tea from last evening, so we really didn't have to think about where to stop for the breakfast. First impression really does work. At around 5:58 am, the mountains finally got some visible light, and it drew me back to the fire where the devotees were flocking in numbers for their turn. There was something spiritually beautiful about fire at that hour. The flame that shone in our eyes took us to the divine world of fire. After an absolute euphoria of the morning magic, the dawn broke into a cool, foggy morning, and the environment got more and more busier. It was a spiritual morning, I would say, and when I am on the field for an assignment, I am drawn more into taking photos than filming the video. But that morning, I felt like filming even the most ordinary happening to reabsorb the spiritual vibe of that place. And at last, before heading towards our hotel room, we headed back to the last evening sunset spot for one last cup of morning tea. The entire downhill forest was submerged in low-hanging clouds, creating an eerie world-like effect. And then, to our utmost surprise, the sun poked out from behind the clouds, and no view was better than that at the moment. Yeah, it was the same spot from where we did star photography early in the morning. I hope it gives the exact perspective of the space I had to manage the entire setup in the morning. we were told we still had more than half an hour for our meal. So I walked to the frontal room of the hotel to see what was happening down the street. It was still the same long crowd waiting for their turns, so after final packing of our bags, I thought to visit the terrace to have the view of the highway far away. It was a bright and a refreshing morning, perfect one to stretch the body. Fitness has always been my long supported holy religion, and to be the devotee of it at such a spectacular place, it was a manifested consistency in itself. So after our meal and bidding the final farewell to the hotel owner, we headed down to the boarding terminal. Like always and everywhere, there was a long queue, but it was worth the wait. Yeah, well worth it. That morning was a total bliss in itself from the very first hour, and when we got to witness this breathtaking landscape, we were left out of words. We were above the clouds, hemming with the fresh, misty air, and alongside, stunned by the steepy structure of the mountains, complemented by the white ocean of clouds. It was like being in heaven with immortals themselves, while we were enjoying that short 8-minute flight down the mountains. At one point, we were totally lost and doomed inside the clouds, taking as many pictures and videos as we could. When we were finally out of that, we were welcomed by the familiar view of highway, river, and the houses near and far. It started to get cold and foggy down there as we approached nearer to the base station. It was like stepping down to the earth from the paradise, totally unknown of the whimsical vista and vibes that we were blessed with. While we were heading down closer and closer to the station, we did not feel that our journey was coming to an end. Instead, we were swifted away by the experience we had up top at the mountains. While there were obviously some positive losses, we were richly awarded by the experience and gains during that very short time. Well then, it was time to get back home, even though we all wish we could be there for some more time. While we were returning back, we had a moment for ourselves at the suspension bridge. The shift in lifestyle of the people we got to witness had us thinking about viewing the life from a different perspective. Unlike the one at towns and cities, the hardships here has shaped the living accordingly. We could see the landslide happening frequently at different spots en route back to the capital city. We stopped once again at Maliku for a tea break, the place that has long been famous for the local fish and the market. This place is exactly where I started the video from. What an epic journey it has been.